Hey everybody, our first book, written in stone, the 1990s, is up for pre-sale in our Patreon, the Secret Stoners Club. This book covers the stories from season 1, some with updated details, includes a full bibliography, timelines of important events in sport climbing, bouldering, and big wall free climbing, more thoughts on climbing history and how we interact with it, as well as full color illustrations. Becoming a Secret Stoner is free. You get bonus episodes while you're in there, and right now, you can pre-order the book for 20% off. The link is in the show notes. Today's episode is sponsored by Tension Climbing. I make my living as a climbing coach, and the board I recommend more than any other is the Tension Board 2. As an early adopter of systemized spray walls, it's what I always imagined boards had the potential to be. You can learn more about the TB2 at their in-depth article on what it is, how it came to be, and how to use it the way they intended, no matter what level you're at, with progression toward mastery in mind. The link is in the show notes. Mark Hudon is a bona fide climbing legend. One of the best free climbers of the 70s and early 80s, he and partner Max Jones looked past convention and moved hard free climbing to the big walls that are synonymous with Yosemite Valley. His article, Long, Hard, and Free, which you can read in our Patreon right now, complete with the original photos, inspired a whole generation of climbers, including Todd Skinner and Piana. The 2020 film Free as Can Be featured Mark and Jordan Cannon and showed us all that big wall free climbing doesn't need to end at 30-some years old, or 40 or even 50. And recently, over 45 years after he was going as free as can be on the Salathé with Max Jones, free climbing more than anyone thought possible, he was back on the Salathé supporting Jordan on a fully free ascent, doing the route the way that Todd and Paul had. In this episode, we discuss the idea that eventually led to the free Salathé, how Mark felt about it finally getting done, and how his philosophy about climbing has changed over time. But first, I want to address one more thing. In Mark's 1981 article, he poses a question. As we packed the bag for its quick trip down, I wonder if we'd done anything at all. Had we broken some mental barriers about free climbing on walls? Well, to answer that question, I think we have to consider that what they did back in 1979 laid the groundwork for what Todd and Paul did 9 years later. And much of what Todd and Paul did became the blueprint for today's Yosemite big wall free climbing game, even if the Valley demigods don't want to recognize it. So it's not a stretch to say that without Mark and Max going up the Salathé in their way, mostly free, there may be no Yosemite big wall free climbing game at all. There may be no free rider, which is the route that kicked it all off. Sure, someone may have done it someday, but there's certainly a parallel universe in which nobody ever considered going up El Cap in the same realm as simply cragging, the way that Mark and Max approached it. And that is a major mental shift. So yes, Mark, I absolutely believe that what you and Max did smashed through some mental barriers about free climbing on walls and pushed climbing far into the future in the process. Thank you both for that. All right, let's get into it. Mark, welcome to Written in Stone.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm psyched that you're back here in Lander. I was really excited to see you the first year you were here, and I was so busy, I don't think we even got to meet that year.
No, not at all.
But this year, I've retired from most of the emceeing, so I got to talk to all of the legends who are here, which has been really fun for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for sitting down with me today.
Sure. Glad to do it.
It means a lot. I feel like a lot of the more recent thought process in climbing has sort of led to this idea that we shouldn't even start a project if we can't finish it. You know, there's this completionist attitude that's like, oh, that's too hard for me. It's not going to be valuable for me if I can't send the thing. You know?
Right.
When you all went up on the Salathé in 79, is that when it was?
Yeah,
78 or 79?
spring of 79.
In your article, you say you knew there were going to be sections that probably wouldn't go free, at least at that time.
Yeah.
How were you motivated to go up there knowing it's probably not going to happen?
There just seemed like a lot of things that would go free that would be
Yeah.
just really fun to climb. And, you know, we looked at the topo. Both Max and I had done the route previously, and so we had an idea of what might go, what might not go. And it just seemed like there'd be just a bunch of cool stuff to go do.
Yeah.
I was texting with Max just the other day. We were talking about this, and he said we weren't going to run around the valley and try to unearth little climbs like Jardine and all those guys were doing, you know, just to work on this one little pitch. We both liked big wall climbing. And so Max was saying, yeah, we could go up there and look, this pitch doesn't go free and that pitch doesn't go free and this pitch, and we might be able to do those free. That would just be so neat. And so really, that's all we were looking for. We were just going to do the first free ascent of a bunch of cool pitches.
Yeah. Did it seem like you were doing something audacious, or was it just a natural extension for you?
It didn't really seem audacious. We had a little bit of an idea that we might be taking steps forward. But that wasn't what we wanted to do. I mean, we did not go up there to take steps. We went up there really, really, really to have fun. And it was a little bit of see what we could do, you know, because we had sat there and we had watched the guys do Astroman and Rostrum and all those routes. And so the next thing, it seemed to us, would be to go free climb El Cap. And we thought, oh, well, those things were sort of whittled down, so let's go start the whittling.
One of the things I think potentially can hold people back is like the superstars of the era and the area, whoever they are, you know, back then it was the Stone Masters, are not going up and doing those things.
Yeah.
I think that can hold people back. Like if you go to a new area and you know the best climber in the area hasn't tried anything at this cliff, they don't go to this cliff, so you just don't go either.
We were up there talking about that exact thing because we were going, whoa, we're up here doing this. Why aren't those guys up here? They're better climbers than us. But we didn't care. We knew we weren't going to be able to do it, but we just wanted to go have an experience.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of, I've sort of started thinking of this idea. What happens if you climb the nose and when you touch the tree on top of the nose, you get the prize for for climbing the nose, but you forget the experience. You know, so you've done all these routes, you're laying there in that bed, you're looking at your trophies going, well, I guess I did the nose because I have the trophy, but I don't remember the experience.
Wow.
You know, so, I mean, Max and I were ready to climb within 10 feet of the top and go, okay, if I touch that tree, I'm going to forget the experience, so we're going to wrap off.
Yeah.
You know, because the experience is the valuable thing. And we were going for that.
Wow, I love that. You know, just last night we both watched Madeline Sorkin's presentation, and her presentation was sort of about this.
Yes,
like finding meaning, being present in the experience. And that does sort of seem like something that gets lost.
It was really, really strange to us that we were the first people up there doing it. I mean, we honestly believed that we were not the best climbers in the valley. I mean, I still don't believe it, but I mean, we were sitting there. I remember distinctly sitting on the head wall going, why aren't those guys up here? There's parts of the head wall that aren't exactly hard.
Right.
You know, like these days I've been telling anyone who goes up on it, I don't care if you're a 5'10", 5'9", 5'10" climber, get set up, get a piece ready, and look and go, I'm going to free climb the next 5 feet. And just free climb 5 feet, because then you can come down and go, I free climbed on the Salathé head wall.
Right.
You know, who cares if you don't do the whole thing? I mean, you get that story, you get that experience.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You know, I had I had sort of written off any big wall free climbing for myself.
Yeah.
And then, of course, your film with Jordan was really inspiring. And then last season, when I was putting together the Freerider episode, and I talked with Josie McKee about her experiences on Freerider, it occurred to me, I should just go up there. I should just go climb on the thing. Who cares if I need to pull on gear?
Yes.
Who cares if I don't send the pitch?
Yeah.
What does it matter?
Nobody
it
cares.
Sounds like such an adventure and experience.
Yes. Nobody cares except you.
Exactly.
You know, and when I was doing it, you know, I pretty much knew I wasn't going to be able to do the Teflon. But I had spent that whole year climbing with Jordan, and it was such a great time, and it was such a great effort there on the route that I told myself, don't let failure ruin the whole experience. And so, okay, I pulled on two bolts and I didn't do it. You know, I would certainly have liked to free climb El Cap, but I free climbed 99% of it.
Right.
You know, and it's people ask me if I'm ever going to go back, and I just go, no, I'm not going to gain anything by going back.
Yeah.
It was such a wonderful part of my life.
Yeah, that's really important. And it's like you went up there and you gave it hell.
Sure.
You know, we all got to witness that in the film.
Yeah.
You were giving it everything, emotionally, physically, all of it. And if that's part of the goal for you,
yes,
which it is for me,
yep,
I assume it is for you.
Yeah.
I know it is for Jordan.
Yeah.
You know, if that's part of the goal for you, then finding that point of failure is part of that.
Yes,
it has to be.
Yes, I mean that's a wonderful part. You know, if everything we ever do is successful, well then so what? You know, so then there's no real trying. There's no real emotion in it. You know, like, okay, so if I grabbed those two bolts and I had gone up and I didn't free climb, you know, the Salathé, and I touched the tree, so now I don't get the trophy, but also I don't get the experience. So like, who cares? Well, I mean, even me, I mean, why bother? You know, so even if I hadn't, you know, like what I did is I grabbed those two bolts and then got there and looked at that tree and said, to hell with it. I don't even care. And I'm wrapping down so that I save the experience.
Yeah.
Definitely. I would have wrapped off.
Wow. I love that. I love you take the trophy or you take the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. You take the trophy and you forget the experience.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. When other folks were going up there shortly after you, you know, I know Stefan Glovac went up. I know, I think Hans Mariaker went up. I think there were a few people who followed after you all before Todd and Paul went up there.
Yeah.
Did you and Max ever consider going back up at that point?
It was really funny. Later on that year, that we had a crazy season. We climbed so many grade 5s and so many grade 6s, lead and follow, free as can be, that we were so much better at that big wall kind of thing.
Right.
That we should have gone back. I don't know. Max and I laugh. We talk about that. Why the heck didn't we go back? You know, I still think that then we would have known that we would have, you know, quote unquote, failed to climb the whole thing. But I think we would have been able to free climb a fair bit more.
Yeah. And at the time, you know, you wrote in a 1981 article, I think that's when it was, that Max was the best climber in the world at that time.
Okay, so in the spring of 78, Max and I were on the Pacific Ocean Wall, which would have been the fourth ascent. And I dropped this giant rock on my finger and it ripped off my fingernail. And, you know, we were halfway up. And I was 21 years old. And it was then that I realized I could die. You know, because when you're a kid, you don't think you're going to die. Dying is what happens to other people when they get old and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I realized I could die. And it really shook me up. And I wasn't comfortable up there on the route. And just Max was, you know, and so really I mean, okay, so he worked not the Teflon, the Enduro corner a bit. There's that one picture of him.
Yep.
And then I followed it first try, you know. I went out the roof, not all the way. I think Max followed it a little bit more.
The roof, like leading into the head wall right there. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just had that, I was just, dropping that block on my finger just freaked me out. And it took me a while to get over that.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yes, and Max was a great climber. He was great. It was so fun to climb with Max.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was on the pitch 19, really working hard.
Mm-hmm.
He was really, really good at small cracks. And so he did really well on that. I followed it probably as well as he did leading it, but just mentally, he was just way more ready to go on the thing. I was a little bit more reserved.
Well, that leads me right into a detour. As soon as you said, I dropped this block on my finger, it reminded me that on the As Free as Can Be Salathé push, you caught a couple of other dropped things.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell me those stories?
Oh God, that was so stupid. we okay, so we're climbing the Free Blast, which, and I'll give anyone credit for climbing the Free Blast now because it is harder now. There were more holds on it, 100,000 people paddling their way up it have worn off holds.
Right.
So it was no real big deal for us to go do Free Blast. It wasn't as hard as it is now. So we were dragging this pack of ropes because we were going to wrap down the heart lines, which wasn't the big deal like it is now.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't fixed lines, so we had to fix our own lines. And so Max had led this pitch, and we were just doing stupid shit. I was Batmaning the rope.
With no belay, no protection.
None of that stuff existed. And Max is pulling up the pack hand over hand, and it gets stuck under this roof. And so I lean over and I jerk the rope, but to jerk the pack out from under this roof, and I jerk it out of Max's hands. And so just like, some nitwit 22-year-old does, I'm holding onto the rope and I just swing over and I just catch the pack in my arm. And Max is all, "Oh, I'm sorry. But it was no big deal to me. I mean, you're 22 years old, you're an idiot.
Reaction.
Yeah. And so Max pulls it off, no big deal. So then on he was leading the 19th pitch, and I'm standing there on top of the ear, and I'm belaying him, and he bobbles a nut with a beaner on it. And I look and I reach out and bam, I catch it.
Yeah.
In my hand. And it's not like I wasn't even thinking that the beaner hits my hand and breaks some bones or something like that. Again, young man being an idiot. But anyway, that's probably my claim to fame on the whole route.
More evidence of your mortality showing up on this ascent.
Well, it would have been that would have reinforced the idea that I wasn't going to die. I could do anything.
Unless you thought about it afterward.
Yeah.
Like, wow, what did I just do?
Which I did. I went, oh, that was stupid. But anyway.
Well, in that 1981 article, which I'll have linked on the blog post here, you end the article saying, "When I saw Paul Piana's article in Climbing about freeing the Salathé, I cried."
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
I don't know. When I was back then, we had done all that. I was young. And so when you're young, you're building your ego, you're trying to figure out who you are. I sort of felt that I needed some recognition for that, which we never got. It wasn't really that big a deal because we didn't really feel like it was a big deal of what we had done. But I just needed that a little bit. So him, when they start out that article, he talks about Max and I and being inspired by us. But even still, just thinking that here was that idea that Max and I had that 10 years later, someone finally did it. Someone thought it was a valid idea. Really, probably more than anything, actually.
Yeah.
And just that, and it really gave me the sense that, okay, we did that thing and we did move climbing forward. So I was happy to have helped the sport that I love so much, and I thought, oh wow, that's cool. All right. They thought of us and they were inspired and they worked it to death and did it. I thought, wow, that is great. So I helped move climbing forward. So that was really a lot of it.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I love that you are aware that you were helping move it forward. It also just occurred to me, you couldn't have said that in the 1981 article. It must have been in a retrospective article at some point.
Yeah, being interviewed. Yeah.
Because they didn't do it until 88, I think.
Yeah, 88.
89.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, but I love that you recognized that even though you didn't send the thing, it was still pushing it forward and bringing it closer and closer to reality, to possibility, And that's what the whole Freerider episode last season was about, was it took all of these people thinking forward, being visionaries to go up there, put all the pieces into place before Huber could come along and do those final two little connecting points that made the thing happen.
Climbing is just a continuous story, and we can't be here without those guys being there. The Robbins and those guys on the first ascent, with their vision, they're putting it up, finding the line, all the guys progressing in free climbing, Ray coming out with the friends, even Nuts and all that kind of stuff, climbing the short 512 routes that we did to bring up our ability and our psych, those guys doing Astroman, all those routes, everything's a step, and we're all taking steps on top of each other, and also we're taking steps as far as fun goes too, so someone goes up there and just has a load of fun. It makes you go, oh, it's not about being manly and being tough and brave and blah, 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 blah. It's about going up there and just having an experience. And those guys went up there and had a bunch of fun. Okay, let's go up there and have a bunch of fun.
Wow, I love that. It makes me wonder, though. I was not in Yosemite in the 70s and 80s, so I have no idea what it was like. But I do know that today there's a lot of sort of territorialism, if that's a word.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, well, they went and finished this thing I started. That was my route.
Right.
Right. You could have been bitter about it.
Yeah. Back then, we didn't, Max and I anyway, didn't believe in ownership of routes. There was, when we were on the Salathé, when we were going up on the Salathé, we knew that Ray and Bill were going to go free climb the West Face. And we talked to both of them.
This is Ray Jardine, Bill Price.
And Bill Price.
Yeah.
And so we talked to them, and it was on our list. And we said, good luck, but if you don't do it, we're going to go on it.
Yeah.
We're going to do it. You don't own the route.
Right.
And that's just all there is to it. We don't care. And so when we were on the head wall, they were walking below us yelling, go Mark, go Max. And we were yelling, go Ray, go Bill. And then, they did it. And we talked to Bill and we said, great, don't tell us anything about the route.
Yeah.
And we did it a week later.
Yeah, that's such a great and beautiful way to look at it, as opposed to that was mine, they stole it, they took it.
Yeah.
I did all the work, their ascent shouldn't even count. That sort of attitude.
Yeah. Yosemite's has always had that tribalism thing, which I think is pretty disgusting.
I also came across a comment of yours on a Super Topo thread that I think it was reposting Todd's or Paul's article about Salathé, and in it they talk about the yard sale they had to do in Camp 4 to fund their time up on the Salathé.
Yeah.
And your comment was, if I'd have known that was happening, I'd have funded the whole endeavor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was really, really poignant.
I would have driven down there. I didn't even know those guys.
Yeah.
I would have driven down. There's no Venmo or anything. I would have given them $500 in cash.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Okay, so by 88, actually I was in a little phase right there where I had quit climbing. But it was just, I saw, these guys were out trying. These guys were out trying this honest thing. They were getting a bunch of grief because they weren't Yosemite climbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, oh, to hell with that. That's bullshit. And so I absolutely would have gone down there. It was funny. I was talking to Alan Watts the other day too.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying,
another guy who got a lot of grief in Yosemite.
I don't know where I was. I don't think it was in the valley, but I heard about it. But they were working the stigma,
right? Which
was this little crappy aid thing that didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so like BFD that they're trying to free climb it. BFD. Give me a break. And so and I said to Alan, and they were feeling like, oh my God, the Yosemite climbers are going to come down here and break our legs. Him and Todd. And I was thinking, if I had been there, I would have driven down there and I would have cheered you guys on.
Yeah.
It's like somebody doing something different.
Yeah.
We can do something the same way for the rest of our lives and we're not going to go anywhere. But I thought, wow, these guys are doing something different. They're thinking. They're inevitably, even if that method of climbing doesn't get accepted or popularized, they're working to push climbing forward.
Yeah. I think those types of interrogations are necessary. Like, look at the way we do things.
Yeah.
Is it the best way? Is it the most efficient way? Is it the most logical way? Is it the safest way, the best for the environment? Whatever.
Yeah.
Rethink it. Try other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Beaners, pitons, nuts, cams, boots, waistbands, ropes.
Right.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Clothing, portalages.
Yeah.
Continue on and on and on. All that stuff has changed because what we did before. And so, but we can change all that stuff, but we can't change the way we climb.
Yeah. And I think it's, the same people who were like arguing against sticky rubber shoes or arguing against spring-loaded camming devices are now the people arguing against knee pads or whatever.
Yeah.
Crack gloves.
Yeah. Yeah. Robbins wrote an article in Climbing Magazine about how friends should not be used.
Yeah.
And how they were degrading climbing, and it was making climbs that had been done, it was making them easier, as if that's like a valid reason to why not do them.
Yeah, and I think you just brought up a really important point, is that somebody like Robbins, who was a forward thinker in some regards,
right,
can also get stuck
right.
in a spot. I can get stuck in a spot, you can get stuck in a spot, and things might move past us.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's how it should be.
They were defending their egos.
Yeah.
Is what it is. You know, Robbins he had a pretty big ego.
Yeah.
He's defending what I've done. If you do that on my routes, you're not as good as me because I did it that way.
Yeah.
Like, well, okay. If that's what you want to say, that's fine.
Were you and Max ever consciously breaking any of the rules that you knew you were, air quotes, breaking the rules?
We were yo-yoing stuff, and back in the day of what that was. There was a route. I don't know if that was breaking the rules. We did this thing at Sugarloaf called Hooker's Haven, and it was we protected it with pins because no way, it's all bolted now, but we led the crux off a 2-pin stack, and we took the pins out afterwards because they weren't really that good, and it was sort of an aid route. Someone was going to go up there and clean the pins anyway.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, if you want to, and our whole thing was, if you want to call it free, great. If you don't want to call it free, that doesn't bother us either.
Yeah.
If you don't want to consider that it's been free climbed, I don't care.
Yeah, I think those like blurry areas, the gray areas in our, air quotes again, rules of climbing are the really interesting spaces. Getting into those gray areas is where we start pushing forward a little bit and changing things.
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
When we when, like Jardine red pointed the Phoenix in every, the exact way we understand it now. He worked on it for a bunch, and he would hang and he'd continue
Right.
and all that. But when he led it from the bottom to the top, placing all the gear.
Mm-hmm.
So he had friends, we had hexes, and so he did a better job on it than we did. And so we could not see why that was a bad thing. We could not, it was like he climbed it from the bottom to the top, placing the gear. I mean, what the heck? He didn't on-site it, but who cares? That he hung and worked on it for however long he did. We couldn't understand why that was a big deal.
Yeah. Did he name Hangdog Flyer, or was that someone else?
I think he named it.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I think he did. He got a real raw deal in Yosemite. I mean, unfortunately, he's, and he doesn't talk about climbing at all.
Right.
He,
just left a bad taste in his mouth.
It was really too bad. But it was that Yosemite tribal BS again,
Yeah. Not to go too deep into Jardine, but, maybe the two things I hear most often about him are, number one, he invented the popular version of Friends, camming devices. But then I also, and I'm guilty of perpetuating this, that he chipped a lot of the stuff on the nose.
Yeah.
And I just came across a quote the other day, and I can't remember who it was, but it was someone who was up on the nose really, really early, saying, we could barely even tell where the chipping was in that traverse.
Yeah.
And it also occurs to me that it was about the same time that Bridwell was going around and hammering in pins and hammering them back out to create finger locks.
Yeah.
So, which is not any different really
Right.
than trying to chisel holds onto a traverse.
And those guys up on the Sea of Dreams, I mean, I remember Dale telling me that he called up for the bolt kit and they sent up a chisel. So I
Make
mean,
a hook placement or something like that.
and I mean, back then, Bridwell had those guys sworn to secrecy.
Sure.
But now they're more, we drilled, a fair bit of it.
Yeah.
And I've never been on the Jardine Traverse, so I couldn't say. And really, would the first 4 pitches have gone free if they hadn't been nailed to death? I can't think of anything. Well, the 19th pitch of the Salathé goes free, I believe, because of pin scars.
Yeah.
So
that's what I've heard.
In a perfect world, it would never have been nailed, but we don't live in a perfect world.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit hard to fault Jardine for chipping that. I mean, given that it's a minuscule part of the nose,
right?
And
he realized what he said was his error and stopped.
It would have been interesting to see what would have happened. I mean, I don't know. I've never been there, so I mean, maybe that would go free at 5, who knows what. But yeah, so I mean, would someone finally have gone, you know what? We're stopped by this 10-foot section on the nose. We should just chip it and then just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that would happen or not.
I know Jardine had the idea afterward to come up with some space age glue that could be easily removed and just put holds all the way up El Cap.
He wanted a full on artificial route, like up the Mescalito or something like that. Yeah. Which would be pretty wild.
It would be.
Yeah.
That's that forward thinking.
Yeah.
When you went back up there, 40 years later, back up on the Salathé and Freerider with Jordan, how'd that feel being back up there after all those years?
It was pretty wild. Yeah. I mean, you can never, it was 40 years after having been there with Max. I mean, you can't plan for anything 40 years from now.
No.
That's utterly ridiculous. No. And so for me to be back there after 40 years and to actually be able to free climb that, it was, it really just humbled me a lot, just the gift that I've been given of my life. You know, like this was my mom just calling here right now, and she's 91.
Wow.
You know, and she's still kicking. I call her the ever ready bunny.
Yeah. Good job, Mom.
I've got money that she lasts to 100.
Wow.
You know, so so I have good genes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've never been in a bad accident or anything. I have no pains in my whole body. So I'm just completely lucky. And then I met this guy, Jordan Cannon, who offered to help me go up there.
Yeah.
You know, which inspired, another giant leap in my whole climbing career and gave me memories that, are just phenomenal. So it was wild. He took a picture of me. There's that one photo of me sitting on Block Ledge when I'm 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then he took a picture of me.
Redid the photo.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the time difference there is 45 years.
Wow.
Yeah, which is freaking nuts. And it just, to me, I'm just there because I love it. I was lucky, yes, I can be there, but just loving it and it's just appreciating the wonder of life that I could go back there and do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy. Like that whole year with Jordan, that was like, I mean, I've had good climbing trips in my life, and there I was at 63 years old having this crazy good climbing year.
Yeah. You told a really beautiful story about you and Jordan at the Houlihan Narratives the other night, which I really appreciated. And I will probably, as long as it's okay with you and with Amy, I'll probably, put that talk that you did up for the patrons, for everybody to listen to.
Yeah.
I really love that you were, one, willing to go back up there 40 some years later, because there's no real paradigm for that, right? There's no like, oh, well, I tried to free climb El Cap when I was 22.
Yeah.
And then 40 years later, maybe now's the time. There's no paradigm for that,
right. Yeah.
But it does inspire me, and I know it inspires a lot of people to see you going up there and having that much fun up there.
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, I told myself not to let failure ruin the experience. And I thought there might be a chance at first that I could do it. After a little while, I realized I wasn't going to be able to do it. But it was just, I mean, I love being on El Cap. I just love dangling up there. And, I'm up there climbing these pitches and I'm thinking of all the other people I've been there with and my experiences and, free climbing off a block up to Salathe. That was one of the pitches Max and I first free climbed. And it's just it's a really, really good pitch. So you're going up there, oh wow, I'm climbing this cool thing. Like you go somewhere here in Lander and it's your favorite pitch and you just love doing that. And so you've done it 5,000 times, and every time you do it, you might, I remember the first time I did this, it was so hard and I hung and I hung and I hung, and now I have it wired and I can't even believe I hung. And, that's that experience. Like, okay, get to the top of that, touch the anchor, you forget the route, but you get the prize. Well, which would you choose,
Yeah.
So you don't have that experience. It's just having a rich life is what this has been for me.
Well, I think it's what it's still being. At least that's what it seems like from the outside. Like I'm sitting here, your eyes are twinkling while you're talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm a natural cynic. That's just my normal disposition. But I sit here and I hope that, in 10, 15 years, I can sparkle while I'm talking about climbing in the same way that you are now. And I see you and Alan Watts and Russ Clune and taking these like victory laps that I hope never end.
Yeah.
You're all out here like really soaking up the climbing community and still involved in it and still telling your stories. And for me, that means so much.
A couple of years ago, I was going to solo this route on El Cap, this thing called Virginia. And I was getting my gear ready, and I thought, I don't care if I solo this route or not, and so I started texting Max. He hadn't climbed El Cap in a while. I go, Max, do you want to go? I was going to solo this route, but here, you should come with me, if you have time. And he goes, oh yeah, that'd be great. So a couple hours later, yeah, I'm in. And so, I get to climb El Cap with Max again.
Wow.
And so it's not about, and the route's easy, for us. We've done a bunch of routes on El Cap. And so it was just being on El Cap with one of my best friends who, I've known Max for almost 50 years now, and so being up there, playing with our gear, hanging out on a portal edge, talking about our lives, doing this thing that we love. It was more just being up there together and having doing this thing that we love, together. And a funny story there, we caught up to this lady who was soloing it, and we were sitting there bragging about, oh yeah, we've been climbing El Cap together for 48 years. And she goes, oh, that's funny. I'm only 42.
Yeah. That's the way it goes, man.
Yeah.
Did you ever, I'm curious, or when did you first talk with Paul and Todd after they had done the Salathé?
It was years. In the well, I didn't meet Paul until just 2 years ago. Yeah.
Here at the festival.
Yeah. And then it was at Smith, probably the mid-90s. Todd was at Smith, and he walked up to me, oh, you're Mark Hudon. I've always wanted to meet you. And I go, oh, you're Todd Skinner. I've always wanted to meet you. And so that was the first time. So 95 probably. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that was great.
I love that there's, you don't have to know each other.
Yeah.
To be able to draw inspiration and joy from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really cool part of climbing. I'm lucky to be able to talk to a lot of my climbing heroes over the years.
Right.
And almost always it's like we sit down and we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
I used to, when I was younger and more brash and bold, I would just go to areas and I would get in the phone book, and for everyone listening, there used to be a book that had everyone's phone number in it.
Yeah,
and you actually had to pay to not be in it.
Yeah.
So I would get in the phone book of an area and I would just call people. I called Ron Kalk that way when I was in Yosemite. I called John Middendorf in Zion. Yeah. And I would just call people and say, hey, do you want to go climbing?
Yeah.
And I got to climb with a lot of my heroes that way.
Yeah.
And it's such a great piece of this community.
And those guys, for the most part, they're totally ready to go climb with you and take you out and have fun and show you around. A lot of those, certainly Middendorf and Ron, they definitely were aware of where they were in history and how taking you out would be moving climbing forward, and they were happy to do that.
Yeah, in fact, when I met Kalk the first time, we had this long conversation about how he was just he was lucky to be in the right place at the right time with the right group of people, being able to pluck these plums out that no one had done yet. And he just felt like he was lucky. Yeah. In my mind, this guy's maybe the greatest climber on the planet, is how I felt watching him climb. Yeah. But in his mind, he was just lucky to be there.
Yeah. Just the same way Max and I felt, that we were always driving around. We would be in El Dorado back in the day, and people would come up, oh, you guys are so good, and blah, 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 blah. And we go, we're not good. We just climb a lot. You guys could be like us if you climbed a lot, and it's just, can you believe what we're doing? This is so freaking cool.
Yeah.
And that's why we're going, no, we just climb a lot. You guys should do this. This is fun. Yeah, go do that. Don't worry. Don't worry about what people say. Just go up there.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I make this podcast is because, and one of the criticisms of the podcast initially was, say if I'm telling a story about Ben Moon, I don't have Ben Moon in the episode. I'm telling his story. And I could just reach out to Ben Moon. And in fact, I did talk quite a bit to Ben just to get the details, you know? But the reason I don't have the main voices in the stories is because people will downplay their own story.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And I want to build them up.
Right.
Larger than life.
Yeah.
You know, I want to make all of these big epic tales the same way that John Long did for the Stone Masters.
Yeah.
I want to do that for all of these other stories that haven't been told in such a grand way. And then I hear you say, we're not good. We're just climb a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mark, that's bullshit.
Okay, thank you.
You guys were good. Maybe the best climbers in the world at the time. And that's not a feat that's easy to accomplish, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm here to give you your flowers, whether you want them or not.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I'm not a person who lives in nostalgia, which it makes me an interesting person to do a history podcast, you know? Maybe better because I get to interrogate it without being, you know, romantic about it. But at the same time, though, I love it and I recognize its importance. And I recognize your importance. And I hope that, you know, especially that Free Rider episode last season, I hope people go into that partially arguing with me. Like, no, the way we do it, whoever does the thing from bottom to top is the one who gets credit.
Yeah.
For me, though, that's not it. And I think the credit belongs to everyone, no matter how it's listed in a book. I think the credit belongs to everyone. So, you know, you're a giant on El Cap for me.
Thank you. I used to be a little bit of a hard ass towards that. I would always sort of, not terribly, but sort of laugh at people who shoved a number 8 up the hollow flake, you know, because I had done it, you know, back when I was, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I did have a thing where if you can't climb Free Rider, well, then you shouldn't be on Free Rider. Right. You know, but now I'm going, you know what? If you don't muck up someone else's experience and you don't muck up the rock, it doesn't matter. You should definitely go up Free Rider and just go free what you can. Do it, climb it free as can be. You know, which the saying right after free as can be is fun as can be. You know, so definitely go up there. You know, just go up there and dangle around and climb a few moves and have some fun. You know, you got to have a certain level of skill. You don't want to muck it up for other people, but go up there and have some fun. Totally. You know, see what you can do.
Totally. With that in mind, like knowing that you've sort of had these attitude shifts, you know, throughout time, and I think we all do. You know, I certainly started climbing with this. You know, I was an ethical hard ass. Like, I don't clip bolts. Shouldn't, you know, if there's bolts there, I build an anchor. You know, I was an idiot. And then I grew out of that, and I think I'm getting wiser as I get older, I hope. When Paul and Todd did it, and you knew they had, like, worked it to death. They had used all these new tactics and spent so much time hanging up there and figuring everything out and, you know, dialing it in as much as possible. At the time that happened, were you like, oh, but they use these tactics?
Didn't bother me a bit.
Great.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy to get caught in, here's the way we did it.
Yeah. Well, and they were the first people to free climb El Cap. And their little star had a bunch of jagged edges on it.
Totally.
And that's the way everything's ever happened. You know, everything when it first got done had these little jagged edges. And then eventually people moved forward from that and smoothed out that edges. You know, okay, it's been on-sited now. All right, cool. You know, so that was the start. No one's going to on-site it without someone doing it previously.
Right.
So to me, I'm going, okay, here we've taken a giant step. We've free climbed El Cap. Okay, so now we're starting this story. And that story is going to take time to play out. You know, it's that same old thing where here in Lander, there's some boulder problem, you know, 30 years ago that everybody's been working on. Nobody can do it. And this is way before the V ratings or anything like that. And then someone does it. And then the next weekend, 2 guys do it. And the weekend after that, 4 people do it. I mean, it had gone unclimbed for 10 years.
Right.
And nobody could do it. But so it's that mental thing. So that has to happen all over the place. You know, those guys, Harding climbing the nose. He broke that mental barrier, you know, and then the second ascent broke that further. The new routes kept on breaking that down. And now someone drives out from freaking Iowa and climbs the nose.
Yeah, totally.
You know? And it's just, okay, this is where we've been. This is how it progressed.
Yeah. I'm curious, how's climbing looking for you now? Like after, you know, Free as Can Be, the film, and the most valiant effort ever on Freerider, how's climbing looking?
Like I'm 68 years old, and so I'm probably not going to get any stronger. I mean, I'd have to work out a lot to get stronger. I'm still a pretty good climber, you know, when I do it. But I've been climbing with this wonderful friend in Vegas, Selena Pang, wonderful lady, 55 years old, sort of in the same mindset as me, where we just want to go out and have fun. And she's a great climber. So we go, and she likes to climb a little bit more moderately, you know, although she can climb hard. So we don't go do really hard stuff, but we go out and we have so much fun.
Yeah.
And I climb with her, and, you know, I still have a little bit of ego left. I want to be climbing hard stuff. But I think, you know what? If I get to climb fun stuff like this with this fun partner, that's all I need. You know, that would be just fine. You know, I can go up these routes. I'm hanging on rock. I'm making moves. We're playing with the gear. We're seeing beautiful sights. I'm there with a wonderful friend. That's all I need. That's all I need.
Well, Mark, thank you for being like a perfect, beautiful template for how we can all approach this thing. You know, it's really easy to get caught in the idea that our best climbing is behind us, and maybe our hardest climbing is behind us.
Sure.
But maybe our most fun climbing is still in front of us.
Sure.
You know, maybe that's the biggest point that we have to put into this like template of how to age gracefully in climbing is our fun days, our most fun days are still ahead of us.
Yeah.
And for me, like I said, you are a giant of Yosemite history, of climbing history. It means so much to me that you're still out here, still talking about it, still telling the stories, you know, and giving people this inspiration and this model that you are. So thank you. And thanks for sitting down and talking to me today.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, it's been my pleasure.
1, 2.
Written in Stone is produced by me, Chris Hampton, with help from Riley Rush for Plugtone Audio, a group of the best, most impactful podcasts in the outdoor industry. Secret Stoners, beyond our first book pre-order, just got a bonus episode of Paul Piana telling the story of what happened after the accident on the Salathé. And soon, they'll get another bonus of Mark discussing how Jordan Cannon has impacted his life. You can join for free at the link in your show notes. And remember, this show is 100% rooted in the facts, but like Todd Skinner always said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. If you love what you're hearing, give us those 5 stars and a glowing review, join our Patreon, the Secret Stoners Club, and tell everyone you know, at the crag, at the gym, and those people who might be looking for the trophy at the expense of the experience, send them this episode, and together we can tell the stories of climbing's most important ascents, 1 decade at a time. Secret Stoners. I stink right now. Been working on the shower all day, which of course means I don't have a shower right now. Double whammy. And it sounds like there are fireworks outside for some strange reason. So if you're hearing that, that's what that is. Maybe the land or air will fill with the smell of gunpowder and block my stench. Somehow I doubt it. I have to sleep with myself. Anywho, when I was editing this conversation, when Mark talks about getting the trophy or the prize versus having the experience, if you take the prize, you lose the experience. Or you keep the experience and you don't get the prize. I think that's an interesting exercise. I'm not a big fan of the phrase, it's all about the journey, it's not the destination. Or I probably even said that wrong. It's not the destination, it's the journey, something like that. I'm not a big fan of that because most of the people who say that fall in one of two camps. They're already very successful, i.e., Kobe Bryant is famous for saying it, or they are making excuses for failing. And I think that's because the destination has to be a part of the journey. Or what's the point of the journey without the destination? But the destination doesn't have to be the trophy at the end. The trophy or the destination might just be the finish line, whatever the finish line is. You don't have to go to the award ceremony and accept your trophy that you put on your shelf that says you did the thing. So I think this is an interesting concept. Now, of course, in reality, there are times when you can have the experience and the trophy. You do get to have both. That is a thing. But regardless, it's an interesting exercise to consider. And when I'm applying it to this thing, to this podcast, to spending a ridiculous amount of hours researching, writing, recording, mixing these podcast episodes, and then a ridiculous amount of time putting this book together, it's not even sort of close to financially making sense. It's not even close. Luckily, I have another job and I've built enough equity in this company that I can have the time to create this thing. It's not easy. It's not like I'm super well off or something, but I do have the ability to continue creating things that I want to create. So the finish line for me is making the thing and putting it out there. The trophy, of course, would be financial success or something. I can leave that behind. Will it be nice to someday be able to have both the experience and the trophy? Sure. But if I had to give up the experience in order to take home the trophy, I wouldn't do it. It's the learning these things. It's the connections with people. It's the moving the needle on how people feel about certain events in history. I've gotten several messages the last week saying, I just believed what Alex Huber said all those years. I read that article. I believed it. That was that. He's a superstar. It must be true. It was printed in the magazine. But it was a story about Alex Huber. It wasn't a story about the Salathé wall or the first free ascent of the Salathé wall. That wasn't the investigation. So, of course, it's just Alex Huber taken at his word. And when I do a bunch of research, trying to be as objective as possible, trying to look at the context of the time, trying to look at the skill set that the climbers brought in, and making an educated guess about what might have happened. Is it possible that this happened? If so, we take them at their word. That's what we do. That's what climbing is. And me doing all of that moves the needle for somebody else. That's That's part of the experience for me. It's not my finish line, but it is part of the experience. Getting to have as many conversations as I've had with Alan Watts, Russ Clune, Mark Hudon, Steve McClure, Ben Cassi, all of the people who I've talked to for this podcast. I was just texting with Rosie Andrews today. I wouldn't give that up for the trophy. Not at all. So I think next time you're doing a hard thing, next time there's something challenging and you're wondering, should I quit? Which is another interesting concept. I've done lots of reading and my own research about. There are YouTube videos that I've made about quitting. There's a whole podcast episode on the Power Company podcast about quitting and how we should quit more often than we do. But if there's a thing that feels really challenging and you're tempted to quit, consider Mark's question. Do you want the experience or do you want the prize? One comes at the expense of the other in our theoretical world. And I think it might answer questions for you. All right, I'm going to go take a bath in my sink because I don't have a shower, and it's going to be a few more days before I do. Another episode is coming on Monday, our final interview of the season. It's a great one. And then I will follow up a week or two after with a wrap-up episode, giving my thoughts on the 80s, what we've carried forward, what we've left behind, how the 80s influenced the 90s to now. And I think I'll also let the cat out of the bag on what the next season is going to be of Written in Stone, as well as what my vision for this whole thing going forward looks like. I think I have some pretty good ideas. So that'll be in a couple of episodes. Next week, the guy who knows more about this at this point than just about anybody. And I say that because he's not only heard these podcast episodes with lots of research, he's not only talked to just as many, if not more, people than I have about this exact subject, but he's climbed the route. All right. I'll see you next week.